Max stood behind the counter of his favorite coffee shop, been there, done that, where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee usually mingled with the chatter of regulars. Today, however, a heavy silence enveloped the room, interrupted only by the rhythmic grinding of beans and the occasional hiss of the espresso machine. He looked out at the sea of blank faces staring at their cups, expressions as vacant as the last donut in the display case. "Hey, folks. Did you hear about the claustrophobic astronaut?" Max leaned over the counter, a grin plastered on his face, ready to deliver the punchline. He just needed a little space. He paused, letting the anticipation build. But instead of laughter, he was met with silence. One customer blinked slowly, as if processing a foreign language. Max's smile faltered. The barista next to him, a bubbly girl named Jenny, had always been the life of the cafe, known for her infectious laugh and quick comebacks. Now, she stood rigid, her hands trembling slightly as she poured a cup of coffee that, instead of warming the heart, somehow felt cold. Just then, as if on cue, a customer, let's call him Bob, spilled his latte. The warm, brown liquid splattered across the floor, and for a brief moment, everyone's eyes darted to the mess. Max seized the opportunity. "Looks like Bob's latte has gone rogue." He chuckled, hoping to spark a reaction. Nothing. Not even a twitch. The awkward silence was palpable, thick enough to spread on toast. Max's heart raced as he glanced at the wall clock. Was it broken too? Suddenly, Jenny twitched, her expression transforming into something unsettling. "Must not laugh," she muttered, her voice robotic, eyes glazed. Max's stomach dropped. He leaned in closer, whispering, "Jenny, are you okay?" "Must follow the coffee," she replied, her eyes focusing on the espresso machine like a moth to a flame. Max stepped back, a cold shiver racing down his spine. Something was seriously wrong. This wasn't the usual morning malaise, it was as if someone had hit the mute button on humanity. With every instinct screaming, Max did what any rational person would do in the face of inexplicable behavior. He posted about it on social media. #SilentInvasion was born, and within minutes, he began to receive DMs from friends expressing similar experiences. "Max, you're not alone," read one message from his tech-savvy friend Nina. "I think it's a virus. I'm immune. Let's meet up." Max gathered his thoughts as he rushed out of the cafe, leaving the eerily silent customers behind. The fresh air outside hit him like a splash of cold water, invigorating yet alarming. He navigated the bustling street, where laughter and chatter echoed, only to find it felt like a cruel joke compared to the coffee shop. Nina met him in a small park nearby, her wild curls bouncing as she gestured animatedly. "I was watching this documentary about alien viruses, and I think we might actually be under attack." Under attack? By aliens? Max raised an eyebrow, skeptical but intrigued. "Not just any aliens. They're using a virus to control our minds. Think about it, look at all the quiet people." She pointed dramatically, and Max couldn't help but laugh. "Right, because that's what aliens do, start a silent revolution through overpriced coffee." He rolled his eyes but then caught a glimpse of an old man feeding pigeons. The birds circled him, cooing softly, while the man stared blankly ahead. The humor faded. Okay, but seriously," Nina pressed. "We've got to find other people who aren't affected. I've heard rumors about immunes, people like us." Max's heart raced. "And how exactly do we find these people?" "By throwing a party," she declared, her eyes shining with mischief. You know, a rally, bring them together and figure this out. We'll broadcast it on social media. A party? Max laughed again, shaking his head. What are we, high schoolers planning a prom? No, listen. Nina said, now practically bouncing on her feet. We can make it themed. Fight the silence. Everyone loves a theme. Fine, let's do it. But if anyone shows up in a tinfoil hat, I'm out. He paused, a grin creeping back onto his face. And no karaoke. Nina clapped her hands, already pulling out her phone. I'll make the event page. We'll even have refreshments, though I don't think we should serve coffee. As the days passed, Max and Nina transformed the local community center into a hub of chaos and excitement. Posters plastered the walls, declaring, "Join the resistance." Hashtag silent invasion. Laughter bubbled up among the immunes, who started showing up in droves, each one as quirky as the next. There was Frank, a conspiracy theorist with a penchant for aluminum foil hats and a wild beard that looked like it had its own agenda. It's not just a virus, man. The government's in on it. I've got proof, he shouted, waving a stack of papers. Next was Aisha, a punk musician whose colorful hair and loud attire were a stark contrast to the subdued crowd they had witnessed days earlier. I refuse to let them take my voice, she declared passionately. Finally, there was Eli, the quiet librarian who preferred the company of books over people. He wore glasses that magnified his eyes to an almost comical size and held an entire book on virology under one arm. I might be able to help, he muttered shyly. Great. We have a team. Max exclaimed, feeling a rush of adrenaline. Let's save humanity. As the group gathered around a rickety table, Nina laid out their plan. So, we know the aliens are communicating through some sort of frequency, right? Aisha, what if we disrupt that with music? Music? Aisha raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Like a live concert. We'll jam their signals. Nina explained, her enthusiasm infectious. Sounds great, but what if they bring their drones? Eli interjected, his voice barely above a whisper. Drones? Like, for taking photos? I thought we were having a concert, not a school play. Frank grinned, but Max could see the tension in his eyes. We'll figure that out later, Max said, raising a hand for calm. First, we need to organize a practice session and test our music. And thus began their training montage. It was a hilariously chaotic affair, with Aisha teaching the group to play instruments they barely knew, Frank attempting to build makeshift alien detectors out of soda cans, and Eli scouring the internet for ways to amplify their sound. The rehearsal space was filled with noise, some good, most bad, but all of it peppered with laughter. As they practiced, the laughter lightened the weight of the impending battle against the unknown threat looming over them. Max felt an unfamiliar warmth spreading through him. He was not just brewing coffee anymore, he was brewing hope. But as their concert date approached, a nagging doubt wormed its way into his mind. What if they failed? What if the aliens were watching? Relax, Max. Nina said, catching his anxious glance. We're going to save the world, one off-key note at a time. Right. Just as long as we don't make the aliens laugh themselves to death, Max replied, a grin breaking through his worry, and thus, with the spirit of rebellion and the power of laughter, the group prepared for their ultimate showdown against the silent invaders. As the day of the concert approached, a palpable mix of excitement and anxiety filled the air. The community center buzzed with energy as people arrived to support the cause. The colorful posters proclaiming, "Fight the Silence," adorned the walls, and a makeshift stage was hastily assembled. Max adjusted the microphone, his palms sweaty, nerves simmering beneath his bravado. "Are we really doing this?" he asked Nina, who was busy tuning a guitar. "Absolutely. This is our moment," she said, her enthusiasm unwavering. "Besides, if we go down singing." Max chuckled, but the weight of their mission pressed heavily on him. They had gathered a small but determined audience, friends, family, and a few curious souls drawn in by the odd theme. Frank had set up his makeshift alien detection system, which mostly consisted of blinking lights and a cardboard cutout of a UFO. Aisha had commandeered the sound system, testing the speakers to ensure they could project their music loud enough to disrupt the alien frequencies. The lights dimmed, and the crowd cheered as Aisha stepped onto the stage, vibrant and fierce. "Welcome to the first ever Fight the Silence concert," she declared. "Tonight, we're not just jamming, we're taking back our minds. Are you with us?" The audience erupted in cheers, and Max felt his heart swell. They were united in this strange, desperate fight against an unseen enemy. The atmosphere was electric, and the weight of fear started to lift. As the band began to play, Aisha's voice soared over the music, powerful and raw. The sound filled the room, reverberating through the walls. Max watched as people danced, shaking off the silence that had bound them. The music surged, a wild cacophony of energy that ignited the crowd. Halfway through the first song, an unexpected shift occurred. The front door swung open, and in walked a group of people who had been absent for too long, silent faces, now animated and wide-eyed, seemingly awakened from a trance. It was as if Aisha's voice had pulled them from the depths of the alien control, and Max couldn't believe his eyes. "Look! They're back," he shouted over the music, pointing to the newcomers. The crowd turned, a wave of astonishment rippling through them. Laughter and shouts erupted, reinforcing the energy in the room. Just then, Frank's alien detection system let out a series of beeps and flashes, drawing attention. "What's happening? Are they here?" he shouted, panic in his eyes. The laughter quickly subsided, replaced by a tense silence. The sound of the music continued, but Max could feel the atmosphere shift, a collective apprehension settling over them. "Focus. Keep playing," Aisha commanded, her voice unwavering. The band pressed on, the notes reverberating like a rallying cry. Suddenly, a deep, humming sound filled the air, cutting through the music. It resonated in their chests, and Max felt the vibrations as if the ground itself was warning them. The crowd shifted, unease palpable as they turned their gaze toward the windows. Outside, a shadow passed over the street, a sleek, metallic drone hovering ominously above them. The air felt charged, and Max's heart raced. "We've got to turn it up," he yelled, trying to be heard over the din. Nina scrambled to amplify the sound, her fingers dancing over the controls. Aisha pushed her voice higher, unleashing a note that pierced the tension, wrapping around them like a protective cocoon. The drone buzzed, its sensors locking onto the source of the noise. As the song reached a fever pitch, a strange thing began to happen. One by one, the faces of the people who had been silent began to crack, smiles broke through the tension, and laughter bubbled up, rich and full. It was as if the music had released a dam, pouring forth their emotions. "Keep it going," Max urged, buoyed by the sight of his friends and neighbors reclaiming their laughter. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. Frank, still frantically monitoring his alien detection system, shouted, "They're reacting. The drones are," but before he could finish, the drone emitted a piercing sound that drowned out the music, sending a shockwave through the center. The lights flickered, and the crowd gasped. Max steadied himself, adrenaline surging. "Don't stop. Aisha, take it up another level," he shouted. With a fierce determination, Aisha began belting out a new tune, a battle anthem that surged with raw energy. The audience rallied, clapping and cheering, their voices joining hers. It was chaos, but it was beautiful. The drone, seemingly overwhelmed, began to tremble and sway. Max couldn't help but feel a strange satisfaction at the sight. "Look! It's responding to the sound," he exclaimed, his heart racing with hope. But then the drone shot forward, directly toward the stage. Max's blood ran cold. "Get down," he shouted, instinctively stepping forward to shield Aisha. In an instant, chaos erupted. People screamed and scattered, and the music came to an abrupt halt. The drone unleashed a beam of light, striking the ground near the stage, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. "Back! Everyone back!" Nina yelled, rushing to grab Aisha and pull her away from the blast zone. Max's heart raced as he scanned the crowd, trying to make sure everyone was safe. "We need to regroup," he shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. "Get to the back." They hurried away from the stage, but as they retreated, Max glanced back to see the drone hovering, almost curiously, as if it was assessing the situation. "Frank!" Max yelled, "Do something with that alien detector." Frank scrambled, frantically pressing buttons. "I'm trying. But it's not responding." Nina was by his side, trying to help him make sense of the chaotic readings. "We need to distract it. Buy us some time." Max's mind raced. "Aisha, can you play something else? A noise that'll confuse it?" "Sure." Aisha shouted, her voice steady despite the chaos. She snatched up her guitar and began to play a wild, dissonant melody, something that wove in and out of harmony, confusing and compelling all at once. The drone seemed to wobble, the beam of light flickering as if caught off guard by the sudden shift in sound. The crowd, sensing a shift, began to cheer, rallying behind Aisha's bold performance. Max felt a spark of determination ignite within him. "Everyone, back her up. Clap, cheer, anything. Make noise." And just like that, they joined in, a chorus of clapping and shouting, a defiant rebellion against the alien threat. The drone buzzed wildly, caught in the cacophony, its sensors unable to process the unexpected onslaught of sound. Max could see it losing stability, and he felt a surge of triumph. "We can do this," he shouted, urging the crowd onward. "This is our world. Not theirs." The drone began to sputter, lights blinking erratically. Aisha's music soared higher, a triumphant anthem against the silence. Suddenly, with a final, shuddering buzz, the drone spun wildly and then shot up into the sky, disappearing into the night. Cheers erupted from the crowd, the tension melting away as laughter and relief filled the room once more. They had done it, together, they had fought back. Max turned to his friends, their faces bright with exhilaration. "We did it. We actually did it." But as the celebration began, something shifted in the atmosphere. Max felt a chill creep in as he looked around. The crowd, once so vibrant, was now caught in a strange stillness. Eyes glazed, they turned toward the exits, as if drawn by an invisible force. "No, not again," Max murmured, dread pooling in his stomach. "Not now." "Max, what's happening?" Nina's voice trembled, her gaze darting around the room. The lights flickered, and a new sound filled the air, an eerie, rhythmic pulsing that seemed to resonate from everywhere and nowhere all at once. Max's heart raced as he watched the faces of his friends, now blank again, drifting towards the doors. Get them back. Aisha, he shouted, desperate. Play something. Anything. But Aisha stood frozen, her guitar limp in her hands, as the pulsing intensified. It was as if the very essence of their fight was being siphoned away. Max rushed forward, gripping her shoulders. Aisha. We need you. You're the one who can break this. She blinked slowly, and for a moment, he saw a flicker of recognition in her eyes. The music. It's the only way, she whispered, as if recalling a distant memory. Then play. Play like your life depends on it. With a sudden surge of determination, Aisha snapped back into focus, her fingers flying over the strings. She unleashed a powerful riff that cut through the pulsing sound, weaving a tapestry of rebellion and hope. Max joined in, rallying the others, pulling them away from the clutches of the alien control. Fight it. Remember who you are. As the music soared, the crowd began to sway, and gradually, one by one, they shook off the silence. Laughter erupted, voices rising to meet the melody. It was a beautiful chaos, a rebellion that transformed fear into strength. With every note, Max felt the grip of the aliens weakening. The pulsing sound started to fade, overwhelmed by the vibrant noise of humanity reclaiming their voice, and in that moment, surrounded by his friends, Nina, Aisha, Frank, and Eli, Max knew they had won a crucial battle. They weren't just a band of misfits anymore, they were a force to be reckoned with, united against the silent invasion. As the music crescendoed, Max glanced out at the crowd, their faces alight with joy, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about fighting off an alien virus, it was about celebrating their individuality, their voices, and the power of laughter. The night wore on, filled with music and laughter, and though they knew the battle wasn't over, they felt invincible. They had stood together, defied the silence, and found their voices amidst the chaos. Max stepped back, feeling the warmth of community envelop him. The fight was far from over, but they had taken the first step. And in that moment, he realized something profound. The greatest weapon against any invasion was not just courage or strategy, but the unwavering spirit of laughter, music, and togetherness. As the final notes rang out, the crowd erupted in applause, cheers echoing into the night. Max raised his arms, feeling the joy around him, a bond forged through struggle and triumph. They had fought the silence, and for the first time in a long time, the world felt alive, and somewhere in the shadows, he could almost hear the distant laughter of the universe echoing back in appreciation.